Greetings and welcome to LGR Oddware, where we're taking a look at hardware and software that is odd, forgotten, and obsolete, and this one is kind of all three, depending on how you look at it. The DejaVu Camware from 2003. It's a teeny little analog camera, though the actual device does record digitally, so that you can have a hands-free wearable camera that is able to record anything at any time. But not all the time though. This is actually one of those that records retroactively. Yeah, this is a fascinating piece of oddware and stylish in a very silly, outdated way. Oh man, I feel like I've been here before and yet we haven't. This is the DejaVu Camware, the Model 100 from DejaVu, the company based out of Brick Township, New Jersey. Not to be confused with the DejaVu Video Productions Company, who are VHS distributors in California, known for such classics as Swimming for Fitness with Donna De Verona. Now, Deja New Jersey View here, they began teasing the camware in the press in late 2003 and released it right in time for the holidays 2003, and then really ramping it up in early 2004. And either way, it was sold for $399 US, plus shipping and handling. And for that roughly $700 adjusted for inflation a couple decades later, you got this wearable, hands-free digital video and audio solution, which is really just this Walkman-looking thing and a little camera that attaches to it via a wire, and the hat and glasses, and you gotta provide those yourself. But this gave you full motion video at 30 frames per second with audio, and it's not one of those things where you just press record and let it record everything. No, this is the other way around, as implied by its statement here. It's a camera that records life, not while it's happening, but after it happens. Yeah, this thing is always recording. As long as it's powered on, it is capturing a loop of video, and then you press a button whenever you want to save the most recent 30 seconds. A bit like a modern day dash cam or body cam, just with a whole lot less in terms of capacity. And I have doubts we're going to be getting results anywhere even close to these example images that it doesn't say anything about being simulated, but they clearly are. These are taken with some other camera with a nice longer lens and much better quality. All you get here is 320 by 240 resolution known as CIF. Or really not even that, since that's usually 352 pixels wide and this is 320. Either way though, CIF is the same as all those countless keychain cameras that you saw in the mid to late 2000s. That's pretty much what you're getting here, despite its statements of using the latest MPEG-4 technology. And yeah, that was true, but less in the sense of quality and more so about efficiency. And keep in mind, MPEG-4 is not synonymous with the MP4 container that you see with videos nowadays. That's technically a different thing. It's outside of the scope of this video, but either way, it's not saving as MP4 files. What you're getting is an MPEG-4 encoded thing in the ASF container, which is Microsoft's advanced systems format you saw a lot of in the earlier days of the internet. But yeah, back to the camware. I just had all kinds of questions as soon as I came across it, new old stock on eBay. And one of my first was this ever sold in stores? I don't know, very few if so. I mean, it was definitely sold directly by DejaVu online for the first year, and then 7 other online retailers were announced in late 2004, but regardless, this doesn't seem to have gotten very widespread distribution. Now, as for the DejaVu company themselves, they were founded in 2002 by Mr. Sid Reich, who reportedly came up with the idea for the CamView after, well, it depends on when you asked him. One of the common stories he gave was after his son's Little League game, wanting to just capture moments from that, but also being inspired by the instant replay feature of the TiVo devices, and then also maybe a bagel-stealing squirrel was involved. As it was put on the website, while golfing with friends, a squirrel jumped into their parked golf cart. Reich watched from a distance as the squirrel ripped open a bag of bagels, pulled one out, and ran to a tree to enjoy it. He said at the time that he wished he could have shown his friends a video instead of just telling them about the squirrel episode. And yeah, I choose to believe the squirrel story. It makes me happy, and squirrels are big enough goobers to do that. But one thing is for sure, the technology that made this possible was from Divio Incorporated. Specifically their NW901 MPEG-4 codec hardware, a fully integrated circuit design that allowed for encoding and decoding of MPEG-4 video and audio on a single little chip. And yeah, their initial sales pitch for this really was for those with active lifestyles, as they said, and specifically parents who didn't want to spend 2+ hours recording an entire ball game or a play or whatever for their kids just to capture a few of the highlights. Though at a $400 asking price, it's not too surprising that they switched gears before long and started targeting businesses and government, particularly security, law enforcement, and military uses, with one standout example being their apparently having been embedded with the 1st Cavalry of the U.S. Army in Fallujah in 2005. I guess only being tested for a couple months, and I can't find a follow-up article saying what the results were, but honestly, I do not imagine that you would want to bring such a flimsy-looking thing into battle. And this article also stood out to me from PC Magazine UK, where they were describing use cases and its limitations, saying that it's still noticeable and ruled it out for hidden camera work or dates. Why would you say that? Why did it even come to mind? Anyway, yeah, the CamView 100. Okay, this was just the first of multiple planned models apparently, but it seems this is where it stopped. There is a mention of the CamView 200 model in 2006, but the photo looks identical. And judging by the description, the main differentiation is it comes with a much larger SD card, and it's configured to record continuously instead of only snippets. And the last products I found from the company were actually software bundles targeted towards, you guessed it, governments and security firms, packing the CamView 100 in with some software suites. I don't know if those ever caught on, but either way, the trail goes cold in later 2006. Their domain expired, their building was occupied by someone else, and that was it for Deja Vu. And their founder, Mr. Reich, seems to be happily retired currently, enjoying time with his pets and fishing off the coast of Maryland. Heck yeah, sounds like a pretty good existence. But let's go back to the prime days of Deja Vu with the Camware. I'll open this thing up and see what it's like to use. So inside of our Model 100 box here, we have a bunch of goodies, all tucked away nicely into their own little plastic cubby holes. But let's start with the software, which I will be backing up to archive.org if it isn't already. This isn't necessary for recording or playing back, but it does let you do some stuff, including some ArcSoft programs, so we will try it out. There's also this 28-page user's guide and instruction manual going over the basics of setup, getting it mounted to whatever clothing or accessories you want to, and of course using the device itself, which is pretty straightforward. There's only a couple buttons and you can mostly figure it out by intuition. It also comes with this list of suggested usage, including of course the children's sports and recitals that parents are so annoyed by recording apparently, as well as travel and education and instructional things, amusement parks, security, employee honesty, no mention of dating. Anyway, there's also the quick reference guide, a single page going over the very quickest of references to setting the thing up, recording, and playback. And next up is this USB-A to Mini B cable for connecting to a computer. Then a power supply with 5 volts DC at 2.4 amps. Then the very much required 64 megabyte Kingston SD card, although it supports up to 512. There's this composite video cable with your standard 4-pole 3.5mm connection right there, and a belt clip and a bunch of other clips to clip on other clippable things with clips. And finally we have the camera itself. Again with a 3.5mm connector on the end, and this tiny little non-adjustable lens right here. What a cute little thing. And finally there's the real computing guts of the operation, this DV branded box. Again, pretty darn close in size to a cassette Walkman, with something rattling around in there, and yeah, the whole thing is much lighter weight than you might expect. And unfortunately also with one of those soft touch plasticky rubber coatings that is starting to degrade and getting a bit sticky. Over to one side behind a sliding door is where the power and USB plugs in. Along the top are 3 LEDs, a couple of buttons, and the connector for either the camera or the composite cable. Then on the other side is the SD card interface, along with this switch for powering on into either playback or into record mode. And that is that. Yeah, I'm really curious what's inside here, especially with that rattling. And I'm also curious why there's this UPC code on the back of the product itself. You don't often see that. Anyway, as much as I want to just attach the belt clip and go ahead and use this thing, it needs power. And I'm concerned about that battery that's built in, especially after smelling it.
Oh, spicy.
Yeah, that is heinous. I don't want to plug this in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take it apart real quick and see what we got going on with the battery. Thankfully, it is just 4 screws, 2 of which are behind that big sticker. And then with the shell coming apart in 2 pieces, yeah, the battery looks to be in good shape, no leaking or bulging, and it is a standard one, an 18650 lithium ion, 2200 mAh, 3.7 volts, so should just be able to swap this out for a new one. But again, it looks okay for now, so I'm going to try to charge it. And then once we get inside here, we have a January 2004 Revision C board, with a couple of larger chips standing out immediately, branded ESS, and that makes sense. The aforementioned chips from Divio, yeah, that was a company that was purchased by ESS in the 1990s, so they just rebranded them, and what we have here is the ES7901G and the 7210G, plus a couple of video processing chips from Philips, and an AMD branded 16 megabit 3-volt flash memory chip right there in the middle. But yeah, it turns out that awful smell really was just the exterior of it. The inside is fine looking, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it back together really quick and see if we get any power at all. And yeah, we do, with it plugged into the wall, but we get absolutely nothing from the battery as expected. But it's a standard 18650 and a 3-pin connection is pretty common, so I just grabbed one of those real quick and it was here the next day, and of course, the little connector isn't quite the same. No problem, I thought. You can just take the pins out of these and stick the new battery's wires into the older connector, and it should have been just fine, but something went wrong. I screwed up and broke off the little connector on the red wire. I'm just, forget it. I'm just going to do what my other first inclination was to do, and that is just solder the dang wires to the dang pins on there. And at this point, I really just wanted to get on with the rest of the video and was getting a little frustrated, so I just broke off some plastic bits and soldered crap right into those pins, and that was that. It works. The power supply is now charging the battery, and things are working great, it seems. Then I remembered that annoying rattling of the battery going on, and yeah, there was foam in there at one point keeping things in place, but it has long since degraded. So yeah, I just grabbed some foam and put that in there, and what do you know, no more rattling around like a spray can. Now I can finally get to the actual camera part of this dang camera glasses video, and that begins with all the clips that we have in here. Really just a couple of different sizes, but multiple examples of each, along with some adhesive rubbery bits and O-rings to help fitment. But yeah, just pick one of the clips that seems to fit whatever you're connecting it to, and it's just a matter of jamming the camera inside of the circular opening, and then routing the wire out to the side somewhere so that it can reach down to the black box. Now, they give you these O-rings to sort of clip to the sides of glasses, but the rest is up to you. And unfortunately, due to the way physics and gravity function, this is going to be lopsided because that cord is pulling down all the time. I decided to just temporarily tape the wire to the back of my head. Advantages of shaving your head. And yeah, that worked and felt immediately better. Such an inconspicuous camera.
No one will ever notice.
Yeah, I know this is not supposed to be some hidden camera on your face nobody notices, but it's still amusing how clunky it actually is in practice. It ain't exactly comfortable no matter what, but the best solution I found was routing the cable over my ear and tucking it up into a hat of some kind just to hold it in place, and then string it down my back to plug into the recorder pack. But unfortunately, the cable isn't very long. If there were only a few more inches to play with, that would be way more comfortable. No, I'm not going to finish that sentence. We're just going to... We're gonna move on. Thankfully, the controls are dead simple. You just put it into record mode and it starts recording in a loop. And anytime you want to save the last 30 seconds, just press the little button. It'll flash for a bit as it's saving that video to the SD card, and then you're ready to go and it starts recording again. So yeah, let's just go out into the real world and do a little bit of testing. And of course, thrifting is sort of the main thing that I started using camera glasses to begin with 12 or 13 years ago. So yeah, I went to a nearby Goodwill and an antique shop trying out some camera glasses in the setting I'm most familiar with, and a few things are immediately notable about the way this looks. For one, the field of view is not nearly as low as I thought it would be. The documentation claims a 60-degree FOV, but this seems a fair bit wider than that to me. This is much more usable in close-up situations than I thought it'd be. But the second thing immediately noticeable and is much worse than I thought it would be is the overall visual clarity, most notably the stability of the frame rate and also the way it handles the interlaced video from the camera. This is not something that I can fix in post. It presumably has 60 fields originally, but those are violently smushed together in some kind of haphazard deinterlacing that is just awful on the device itself, and that's baked into the resulting file. So it's not only choppier, but more smeary and image ghosty looking and even more plain bad than it even should be. I'm sure there's some reason for it, some hardware encoder limitation, and there's no options at all that you can adjust. Certainly nothing on the SD card or anything like that a lot of later camera glasses would have, like a text config file or whatever. I also just want to mention how odd it was to get used to recording with this thing, especially being used to other head-mounted cameras. Because even though it is recording all the time to a buffer, it doesn't actually save anything until you press the button and then it records the previous 30 seconds. I actually forgot to record several things because I forgot to press the button afterward. It really would make a lot of sense for those parental situations where you're recording your kid's game or whatever, or as ridiculous bagel squirrels, but not really a great thing for taking out thrifting, or taking on dates, or battles of Fallujah, or whatever else they came up with for use cases. But regardless of the situation you're in, using these, I can't help but feel it is an embarrassing situation to be in, and the camera is just protruding out so far and so obviously that it's like having a big neon sign above your head saying creep. I feel so self-conscious. This is awful. And unfortunately, you can't even be a reliable creep, as I found out, because about half the time my audio clips didn't record at all. The video's almost always saved, but the audio, a lot of times it's just a completely blank track. I also found that at least mine with the original SD card is prone to a bit of corruption. In particular, when you fill the entire thing up, well, when I came home to get the files off of there, it was completely empty. Which is weird. I was absolutely playing back some of the videos over the composite connection earlier that day, but after I went back out and filled up the card, every one of the dozen or so clips I had saved were completely missing in the folder, and nothing when playing back on a TV either. So yeah, pretty much all the footage you've been seeing was recorded a second time after I got another SD card, a 512 megabyte one, which is the largest that it claims to support, and had no corruption issues here. But then again, I also didn't get anywhere close to filling it up, so I don't know if it was an issue that happened because of the card I was using, or it just got full and didn't know what to do. I have no idea, but I found it hard to count on anything being actually recorded how I wanted it to, whether it's the audio, or saving files and maybe they get corrupt, or just the fact that things look so friggin' weird sometimes, especially during the middle of the day. Like, I find this actually pretty fascinating here. Like, check out what happens when you look directly at the sun. Yeah, it is some trippy effects. It's like a psychedelic album cover or something, man. It's great. Could be an infrared filter thing or lack thereof. I don't exactly know. I'm just guessing, but it's one of those fascinating effects that's kind of cool if you know that it's there, but otherwise you end up with a lot of weird looking video, and then the rest of the time, the more light you have, the darker the results tend to be. It really doesn't know what to do with a whole lot of light. Conversely, the sound that it records, it's actually not that bad. All right, just a testing of the microphone here as it's on my face, just kind of walking around, seeing what it sounds like. There's a bit of wind blowing, but hey, ducks. What are you doing? It's really cold. Just a test here of the audio in the car, but also positioning of this camera. I've noticed that when I'm driving, it's kind of pointed up just due to the way the glasses and everything, my head is situated, I guess. Yeah, it makes Wings sound like a bass competition. It wasn't even that loud, but it just doesn't like low frequencies at all, wind noise, any of that kind of stuff, but just picking up human voices and ducks. Yeah, I've heard worse. And then the last thing here before we wrap this up is the computer side of things, and there's really not a whole lot to see. You only need the CD-ROM for the MPEG-4 video codec, so your computer knows how to read the video files, but they just show up as ASFs in a standard mass media device plugged in via USB. There's no way to actually access the camera itself while it's plugged into a computer. It's only a mass storage device and nothing else. And as for that ArcSoft software that it comes with, it's the most basic kind of video editing, DVD authoring software suite of the early 2000s. Certainly brings back a lot of ULEAD video memories for me. It's sluggish and clunky and awkward to use, but it gets the job done, Of course, there's no need to edit anything at all if you don't want to. They will play just fine in Windows Media Player 9 or above, as long as you have the correct codec installed from the CD-ROM. Otherwise, really the best way to play back your videos is directly through the composite output in a TV. You've even got a little menu system that you can control with the 2 buttons it has. That's more than I thought I'd get, so I'm impressed. A phrase that pretty much sums up this entire device. Impressive for its day and surprisingly competent decades later, yet wildly cumbersome to use and uncomfortable to wear. I genuinely have no idea how they expected anyone in medical or combat situations to rely on these, not without a serious redesign of the mounting solution in particular. Even on thicker pairs of glasses like these or hats or whatever else I've tried, the clips are not very strong and the cord is too short and gets in the way constantly. And yes, I did try it with hats as well, and in a way that was actually worse. It was nice to be able to get the camera more centered and level right in the middle of the bill, but like, where are you gonna put the cable? Just over your head and down your back? Well, then that shortens it even more. I tried routing it more over and behind my ear, but you don't have those O-rings that hold it in place on the glasses legs. There's just no easy way to manage that cable. And again, if it was just a little bit longer, some of this could have been avoided. Now, the solution was eventually, by other people and other companies, integrating all of this into one thing, the recorder, the camera, into a single unit. But that kind of miniaturization was years away, and the Deja Vu crew wasn't interested in waiting around. So here we were in 2003. As far as oddware goes, or an odd wearable in this case, the camware is really not a bad idea, just arguably very much ahead of its time. Because, wearable cameras that record constantly, yeah, that is an established product category at this point. Still considered a bit creepy or controversial depending on how they're implemented, but camera glasses are an idea that just won't die. Heck, I was watching all the CES 2026 coverage a week or two ago at this point, and then saw some weirdly similar glasses-mounted camera hardware at CES 2026 there. Granted, the main selling point there is combining it with smart tech and some form of AI integration, but the core idea, right, of converting normal accessories like glasses or hats or whatever into something that can record and see the world around you. That's still an idea that remains pretty fresh, and I'm amused that these folks were trying that out 23 years ago. But I'm also happy leaving these back in 2003 because, boy, I cannot wait to never wear these again. And hey, if you ever used these CamView glasses in any situation back in the day, let me know. I'm curious if they actually did find a good use case for some folks, or if, like me, you're just kind of amused by seeing earlier ideas of things that became slightly more commonplace over the years. Either way, it's good to be back with some oddware here on LGR, and I hope you continue to stick around for the other videos that are continually in the works. And as always, thank you very much for watching.